Sampo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngo da pelge drolor zampe ze parache panden lame shab solvade Om a guru vajradara sumati munisha sane karm Uta vardani shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Uta Vardanya Shri Badra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi Jitsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sungi Nawa Tsedo So Seji Ningne Solva Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lungi Drubra Chingelo Soni Sodan Dikdun Shape Tse Dungi Namke Yinsu Lekshune Lapchen Soni Yonsu Zopa Dan Cherani Dun Chamra Chingelo Chancho Parge Ninsen Tugun Tu Niu Peme Siudru Lekshune Chancho Drube Gegen Kunshishi Tingen de la drubra chingelo dagelo na chola chokpa dan chemin samjur ngemba shiwa dan chedan tumbe deden malupa beme lungi drubra chingelo dorna tingne tsira tamche dan techi pardo nega tamche tu rese kyamne lama keleme tukje chenge dala sikso solo gongyab drewe nyamda da chala jitsun lame tuje rabgongne Kudan sungi nawa dral me tu nyam sunyongwe kesan tobrasho kewa kundu yanda lama dan rame cheki pela longche chi sadan lamge yenten rabzon dorje change koba nyur tobasho Pakyuke kudan dage alu Pakyuke sundan dage nga Pakyuke tukdan dage yi ten yerme chiktu chingi lo Makyuke kudan dage lo Makyuke sundan dage nga Makyuke tukdan dage yi ten yerme chiktu chingi lo Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chijin gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chushe gibe Sangye drupara sho sangye chodan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupara sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Good morning. I'd like to begin today, starting with a character trait that we have. It's not only our own, but it's a characteristic that all living beings share. Animals, plants, people. This ability to adapt, this ability to live a situation and to see the best way to live that situation, and little by little the way we're able to adapt ourselves so that we can do it better and better in the long term. This is a characteristic that if we see, many beings have this ability. There's just when there's a change in the circumstances, in the environment, some are better at adapting to those circumstances. And a fundamental point, even regarding our ability to survive, our survival depends on how well we can adapt. So many beings have to adapt to different situations, living in extremely hot places, extremely cold places, or places where there are millions of people, one on top of the other, or in solitary places. But when we adapt to a situation, somehow we are also transforming ourselves. And the longer we are in that situation, the easier, then the more that that becomes part of who we are. It's not that I then change my environment, my context, then I change immediately. No, I've transformed and I stay in that way. And if we look at the relationship that there is between men and animals, very often man has tried and tries still now, is try to control the evolution of a species. We can see, when we look at the system of reproduction of many animals or breeds. Now I'm learning a little bit more about bees, and I see that the same thing is done. Bees, queen bees, are selected according to how much the colony can produce, or or a selection is made based on them being these bees not being aggressive, for example. So this is something that it happens in all species, that we try to have this control. We see this with dogs and everything. There's a friend was telling me something, actually it kind of shocked me a bit. They talked about this system to select turkeys, because they, they're trying to have the turkey that is reproduced more and more. But what is eaten of a turkey? The thighs and the breast mostly, the legs and the breast. So there's an actual process, and it's not a genetic modification, but it's a question of selective reproduction. So they want the turkeys to have the bigger breasts and bigger turkey thighs. So in Brazil, for example, this in Brazil, in one of these places where they were raising turkeys. He was quite proud of this. It really shocked me. But he said that this is like the corridor of the death. That's what he said. And so these turkeys needed to walk there. But they were so robust, and some were not even able to walk because the breast was too big and heavy. And those who were able, after a certain age, were those who were able to walk this hallway, let's say, this runway, they were selected for reproduction, and those who weren't able, they were not selected and killed. So this just shows really how we just use ourselves as the only reference, using the I and the my, really carrying, not caring at all about other beings. This is not what I wanted to talk about today, but there is this process of adapting, and this process of evolving. So there's a physical aspect and a characteristics related to our personality. I see this in the dogs. Between one breed and another, there's an enormous difference between breeds regarding their personality. Then I ask myself, am I an animal? I am. I imagine that you too. So, no, you don't give value to the human race. You say we're animals. No, in a good way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being an animal. We're mammals, and so there are aspects of our personality that we inherit. But what happens in this evolutionary transformative process, so the word evolution is probably not the best word, because this process is not necessarily a process of bettering, but it is change. But this change doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting better. I read a book some time ago that explained that in the evolution in the human species is that the form of the nose was changed. Initially, the previous humans had a larger nose and a more robust chin area, so that they could smell better. And then the nose became smaller, the mouth area became smaller, our teeth changed, our breathing changed, many things, actually things that are not actually good. So this that has happened to the human race is not necessarily a sign of evolution in the sense of bettering our ability to smell and to eat, etc. But the point is, we're always transforming, and as we transform, we're trying constantly. How can I say? Our system, our being. Those who say it's thanks to the brain or thanks to one's mind or heart, but we're always trying to survive, look for balance, and really try to adapt. When for example, we spend a long time somewhere where it's very polluted. When we get to that place for the first time, let's say we live somewhere where there's no pollution, and we go to a city that's very polluted. When we first get there, we really perceive that pollution, don't we? I mean, do we like it? No, it's really bothersome. I find it bothersome, but why? Why does it bother us? I think it's because our system is intelligent enough to discern what's good for us and what's bad for us. And ideally, we should be attracted to what is good for us and have aversion towards what's bad for us. And so when I go somewhere and there's that smell, and I can feel that the air is not healthy, there's a part of myself that says, leave, this is not good for you. But instead we just stay, time goes by, and after I don't know how many days, a month, whatever it is, if we're there with that same level of pollution, does it bother us the way it did at the beginning, or do we get used to it? We don't even smell it anymore, we don't feel it anymore. So but the fact that I don't smell that bad air, does that mean that it's not bad for me anymore? No, I've adapted somehow, but that is still negative. It's still bad for me. So we have many situations that we create. And these situations and these processes of adapting, they transform us. They transform aspects of our mind and aspects of our body, and these transformations bring consequences. There's no possibility to stay somehow static without transforming. I don't see any kind of possibility to say, okay, I'm here at this point, I want to stay exactly as I am. We don't have this possibility, because every situation that we live, every interaction that we have, constantly, it brings a transformation. Now, here's the main point that I wanted to talk about today. This is a choice that we can make. This choice has to do with
Questa scelta riguarda.
So I want to live my life. Now, do I want to live my life like a leaf in the wind that follows the circumstances? Do I want to live life as a reaction to things, and somehow I react in life? So obviously, there's work and family and difficulties and physical pleasures and social needs, and life goes on. And in this life of ours, little by little, I adapt to one situation or another. I react here and there, and I live according to the circumstances I live, that I experience. So what happens, even our way of thinking and reacting, is strongly linked to the experience we've lived in our childhood, at home, how we were raised. And so we say, okay, I live my life. I go ahead, allowing myself to being what life allows me to be. The second possibility is where I accept what I am. Okay, I'm here. At this point. I'm the result of all the experiences that I've lived up to today, the education that I've had, the social, cultural context in which I've been raised, the various ways I've been able to adapt according to different circumstances. But I have a possibility here. when I find myself in front of a situation, I have a little bit of freedom, just a little bit, but it's there. This free will is choosing how I want to react to a given situation. We have this possibility, this choice of how we react to a situation. It's not a choice that at 360 degrees. We have certain parameters within which we can stay. I can't choose from one day to the next to be a totally different person. I don't have this ability. Let me give you an example. If I haven't learned if I haven't developed a certain level of concentration, it's not that I just say, okay, now I need to keep my mind still for 2 hours without thinking about anything else. I'm not going to be able, no matter how much I want it. But there are many, many other things that I can choose. I can choose to stay a few more seconds here. I can try to not relax and be taken by distractions. What do I do? This is a possibility that I have. So in that second choice, we say to ourselves, more or less, I don't want to live life as a reaction, like constantly reacting to the various situations I find myself in. Instead, I want to live my life making choices with awareness so that I can transform myself in the direction of what I want to become. This is very important. I don't have this ability to become something from one day to the next, but I have an ability to walk in a certain direction. And the same thing is valid for us as a species, as a society. We try to manipulate a certain species, trying to control a certain process of reproduction so that they develop certain qualities. And I ask myself, as human beings, do we have an evolutionary idea of ourselves as a species? Where do we want to go? For me, for example, it would be beautiful. Imagine how beautiful it would be if we one day could have like a museum of anger, because there's no more anger in society. People don't get angry anymore. There's no more hatred. And so to remember what was, there's a museum, or one goes there. Oh, you remember there used to be something called anger, and people used to act like this and that. And there was something called violence and hatred, something that no longer exists because we have evolved. So where do we want to go? Before having a direction as a species, as a planet, it's important for us to be able to look at ourselves. Otherwise, there's a danger that we start dreaming and talking about, what a beautiful society would be, and which is good on one side to do that. But there's the danger that we're looking out and we say, oh, how wonderful it would be if the world were like this. But it's too bad that the world isn't like that and we do nothing. Instead, it's important for us to be able to look out and say how wonderful it would be if there were no longer anger or hatred. But how can I bring that to myself? For the world to be free of violence and anger, what if I set an objective for myself? What if my life were free of anger and hatred? I mean, that's a lot more doable. Why is it important to desire something? Every interaction inevitably brings a transformation. I interact as a reaction to the situations around, or I interact with awareness. In that interaction with awareness, if I have a direction where I'm going, I choose to act in one way or another. A little bit like saying, if I'm driving or walking, and it's clear where I want to go, very clear, I want to get to that place. And I see a place, I see another place. I'm careful. I don't know, I can't turn here. I'm going there. Because I'm thinking about a friend of ours who already left his body. His name was Peter. He was a monk for quite a few years here at the center. He was really a character. Years and years ago, he was to India, drove to India years without wearing shoes. He had a beautiful voice, and many of the audios have his voice, and a lot of the NgalSo practices. He really had this BBC English, or beautiful, beautiful English, but he was quite particular. And when he would travel by car, he would like he would come back from Milan, and so you went to Milan. So when did you arrive? At 7. Well, how come? Well, it took about 6 hours. Why did it take you so long? Oh, because I was on the road, and at a certain point I saw the name of a town and that I'd never heard of before, and I just wanted to see it. And so he'd get off the road, and I just, when he would go from one place to another, he tried not to always to take the same road, and he wouldn't apply this even when he would drove here to England. So you'd ask him, how long would it take you to, how long is the trip? He said, I don't know, maybe 12, maybe 40. So on one side, it seems absolutely beautiful, and these times where we're just counting the minutes, he just didn't care about any of that. But on an organizational level, trying to organize and plan your trip, it was a little bit more difficult. But why was I talking about Pete? And so my point is, if I'm on a trip, what can happen if I see a name of a city that I like? Okay, there's a nice name, like Dormaletto. I've never been to Dormaletto, but I like just the name. And the name, it seems like a nice place. I mean, better than Malpensa. It's just as names, just the names. And so in times where people don't sleep well, going to a place that says dormeletto, which in Italian is like sleep bed. And malpensa is bad thinking. So anyway, I've never taken the time to go and visit Dormaletto. I've never thought about going there. But imagine that I'm on my road and I see the sign Dormaletto. I said, oh, that's interesting. And I go. And while I'm on the road, I've forgotten where I was going. The probability of getting off the road and spending time in Dormaletto that's real. I could spend years there. Instead, if I'm on the road and I remember where I'm going and why I'm going there, so no matter how many beautiful things I see on the way, I won't stop, because it would be taking me off the road. So to understand if I'm getting off the road, I need to know what my path is. So if I have a clear direction, that allows us to see what choices we need to make to keep ourselves on that road, on the path, so it's not simply a reaction to various things. There's a fundamental aspect of the Buddhist practice is being able to allowing ourselves to imagine the state that we want to be. What would be the best version of yourself? And to understand this a little bit, something that I've imagined is a kind of an advertisement, because advertising has a great power. Also because there's a very simple dynamic, a very simple process, which is to put energy into something. First of all, I need to desire it. I won't put energy into something I don't want. So once I desire something, no, to desire something, I need to know it. So to allow myself to see myself in that way, I need to desire it. So for advertising to work, a company, to buy something, the company needs to put energy into convincing people that they need that product. So as a company, how can I make sure that you, as a potential customer, you buy my product? I need to make sure that you desire it. And the stronger you desire it, the higher the probability that you will buy it. Because, and to desire it, you need to know it. You need to know that it exists, its characteristics, its benefits. Believe that you can buy it. Because if I show you my product, and no matter how marvelous it is, and you say, wow, that's fantastic, and I say, it costs more than you can even imagine, are you really going to want it? No. An example that I've given several times, when I bought a car for the first time, I made a list of the possible cars that I could buy within, the range that I could afford. Those that were, with the money that I have, what kind of car could I buy? So I wanted a safe and comfortable car mostly. And I looked at, there were many cars that were comfortable and secure, but they were so expensive that I didn't waste my money looking into them. I really realized this as I was looking for a car. I was in Holland, and there was just outside the airport of Amsterdam, there was an enormous billboard for a Rolls Royce, and it says, "If you ask the price, it's not the car for you." That was the slogan of the campaign, and that's true. Because if there's something that goes beyond my abilities to get, I don't really desire it. I can have an idealized desire for something, but I wouldn't put energy into it, really. So the process is, if I want to put energy into something, I need to desire it. And I need to believe that I can have it. I need to believe in my ability to get it. And to desire it, I need to know it. So let's try to imagine what a Buddhist ad would be. I've thought about this. I thought about this a couple times, and I said sooner or later we're going to do it, even though I'm a little bit against this idea of spreading the Dharma like this. Just imagine your life as it is. Observe your body, your physical state of being, without judging too much, just observing how your appearance that you have and how others see you, your economic situation, your relationships with others, with your family members, your relation within a couple or not, and allow yourself to look at every aspect. The situation at work. Do you like your work? Do you work? Um, so make a kind of a painting and all the different nuances, all the different aspects of your life. And now, for a moment, allow yourself to dream. Imagine how your life would be as it is, with the same body, the same family, the same economic situation, same social situation, work situation. But imagine how our life would be if we stopped projecting, if we stop projecting how things, should be, and we allowed ourselves to have to feel more harmony with how things are. How would our life be if our life was no longer in contrast, in opposition to the present, but if we lived with a joyous aspiration towards the future? What would our life be like if we stopped feeling anger and hatred, if we were no longer in a situation of opposition against others, or if we had a sincere, altruistic, loving feeling towards others, feelings of gratitude? What would our lives be like if we were satisfied, if we knew really how to enjoy what we had instead of wanting something more and more, if we were free from anxiety and fear and uncertainty? What would our lives be like if we didn't have any more hatred or resentment? What if our lives were in peace with the past, present in this present moment, and and at peace also without fear for the future? What if we were really at peace with ourselves and with others? I mean, this is what we want, isn't it? What does this mean? This is desiring something that doesn't have anything to do with the external context, but with how we live the world. So you can have this product in very, very easy daily installments. Unfortunately, you can't pay with money. That would be too easy. But we need to pay with our choices, with awareness, because there are certain characteristics of ours that generate suffering and malaise, and there are other characteristics that we have that actually sustain a state of well-being and harmony and satisfaction, peace. So the job at hand is, given that I want to get there, I'll try to cultivate within me these characteristics that help me be well, and naturally I eliminate those that cause suffering. So if I'm, for example, if I'm in a very dark place, if I bring light, naturally the darkness fades away. I don't need to get rid of the darkness and then bring the light. Similarly, when we cultivate our qualities, those characteristics, those inner characteristics of our physical and mental conduct, when we cultivate those characteristics that are good for us, naturally, little by little, those that are harmful for us get eliminated. So one's life's path, one should one's energy of one's life path should go towards the light. So these qualities that Buddha described as this 1 plus 6. There's one fundamental quality, and on top of that, there are 6 other qualities that we should and that will develop. And we have these qualities. We have these qualities in different measure, but the more we have these qualities, the better off we are. And the less they're present, the more difficult it is for us. And in Sanskrit, they're called paramita in Sanskrit, and in Tibetan, parchin. It's often translated as perfection, and I'm sorry to say, but it's not a great translation. Um, so if the translation was used and used often again and again, even though we know it's the wrong translation, we keep using it. I don't know why, but we keep doing it. So instead of calling it the six perfections, we should invent a new word, because there's six qualities that we need to bring beyond. Par means beyond, and chin means to go or to have gone. So it could also means to perfect a quality. So we take a quality that we have, and we develop it to its maximum potential. So we talk about the six perfections. We might have this idea that we have it or we don't have it, when actually it's something that we need to gradually develop and better in perfection to allow ourselves to go beyond. It's parchin, because these are characteristics that once developed to their maximum potential, they allow us to go beyond suffering and to reach a profound state of peace. The first one, which is actually not part of the six, but is the basis, it's the fertile soil on which we will the others will grow. And this is a very sincere feeling of love towards ourselves and others, without talking too long. But here, when we talk about love in this context, we're talking about a strong attraction to happiness. So if I love you, it doesn't necessarily mean that I like being with you. It's not like I love chocolate. I love chocolate. What are we saying when we say I love chocolate? That I feel pleasure when I have chocolate. If I love you in the same way that I love chocolate, it means that I'm happy with you, so I'm attracted to you. But here the context of love is something different. I love you. I'm attracted to your happiness. Your happiness is important to me. I love myself. My happiness is important to myself. I'm able to love myself well once not only do I want my own happiness, but I'm able to cultivate what's good for me, and I'm able to abandon what is harmful, even if sometimes what is good for me is something I don't like, and what is bad for me is something that I do like. So this first level of loving ourselves is this strong determination to do everything that we do to really be well. It goes beyond I like, I don't like, I want, I don't want. An example for this, this is food. It's a very basic example. So what would be a way of eating where we cultivate love for ourselves? I eat what's good for me, and I'm not going to eat what's bad for me, independently of whether it's good for me, independently of whether I like it or not. That's easy, no? This is a fundamental point of a fundamental parting point. So Buddha said, I am my own protector. I am my own enemy. The choices that I make are going to determine the result, which doesn't mean that what's around us doesn't affect us, but that's also a result of all the choices that we have made in the past. So the interactions that we make now, how we interact mentally, verbally, and physically. So first of all, we love ourselves. I want to be well. So what's good for me, I need to cultivate. What's bad for me, I need to avoid. The second step is when little by little we're able to understand that what is really bad for me, this obsession is what's really hurting me is this obsession with obsession with self-gratification and this obsession with the I and the my, that we use the I and the my as our reference point. And so living this obsession takes us to not seeing others and seeing others only in reference to ourselves. So the one who's good to me is my friend, the one who hurts me is my enemy, the one who does nothing for me I'm indifferent to. And then we have the friend of the friend is our friend. And the one who's bad to my friend is also my enemy. And the one who, so the one who's good to my friend is my friend. The one who's bad to my friend is my enemy. And the one who does nothing for my friend, I'm indifferent to. So when we have this obsession, or we live the world, in this dynamic, today you're my friend, but then you're going to do something, and I think that you have harmed me, and so and you've done something to me, and now I'm calling you my enemy. And to make it even worse, both with friends and enemies and neutral people, we have three main ways of relating, always taken from this selfishness. Towards someone who has more than me, what do? I rejoice. No, right? I rejoice if someone has more than I do. No, someone who has more than me, what normally is a reaction? We feel envy. To he who has as much as I do, we feel competition, competitive, and the one who has less, I feel arrogant. Oh, okay, so I'm so handsome. He's not as handsome as me. Oh, he's not as handsome. Or he's more handsome. How's that possible? In other words, we're not able to relate to others without comparing ourselves, and we just never get relaxed. We're never relaxed. I mean, it's exhausting. So anger, resentment, jealousy, and so many other inner states that generate suffering, or they cannot be upheld if there weren't this obsession with self-gratification. Without that, then they would crumble. So the next step is to understand and to bring from our head to our heart that, selfishly speaking, just thinking about my own well-being, my own suffering, it's much better to be altruistic. So what the thing that brings us the best thing is altruism, empathy, a deep sense of affection, loving someone. Actually, when we feel a connection of love, actually oxytocin increases in our body. This makes it that our senses actually perceive things differently. So if I eat that same plate of pasta, and or maybe as I'm eating, maybe I've had a fight, or actually even worse, maybe I'm arguing. So, or maybe I feel affection to the one who prepared the dish, the actual taste. And I'm talking about something physical in our palate. It is different. Actually, I mean, if I heard this just a few days ago from a neuroscientist that there are studies that show that when you go walking in the mountains with a heavy backpack, and there's a lot of physical stress, one uses fewer calories depending on whether one is walking alone or with in a group. If you're with someone with whom you feel trust and interest, affection, then the body actually uses up fewer calories. This means we can apply this to thousands of different things. In just a few words, loving is good for us. So I thank you because it would be when I love, I'm better. You're allowing me to come into contact with the best part of myself. Instead, when there's aversion or distance or opposition, I feel bad. I mean, that's how I feel, and I imagine it's the same for you too. It's not just a play on words. Selfishly speaking, it's much better to be altruistic. And when we talk selfishly speaking, why is that important? I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I don't know each one of you profoundly, but generalizing, are we all selfish or not? What's our reference point? To the common good or me? I mean, we are self-referential. We're selfish. How can I not be selfish given that I'm selfish? I need to use selfishness to not be it anymore. Also because altruism is not a state in opposition, in the sense I don't need to take away selfishness to develop altruism. Altruism is the evolution of selfishness. Let me explain. Selfishness is where I have this obsession for happiness. I want to be happy and I don't want to suffer at all. Altruism is when that same attraction to happiness, aversion to suffering, instead of being directed exclusively to myself, it actually includes others. So I don't want to suffer, absolutely not, but I don't want anyone else to suffer either. So altruism is when I'm able to say your happiness is as important to me as my own. Your suffering is as important to me as my own. I don't need to exclude myself to include you. And this state of love and compassion that is fundamental along our path. And we can little by little include others, recognize the love, the joy in loving, the joy in seeing others. And the others is anybody and everyone. Once we have this quality of loving ourselves and loving others, this is the basis. This is not just from one day to the next. It's something that really takes time. A very it's much better to be an artificial altruist than a to be artificial means I choose with awareness to act in a certain way, even if it doesn't come spontaneously to me, but I'm sincere. It's not false. False means I do something to show. I do something that I don't really feel or think, just to show. I'm not saying that we should be a fake altruist, but an artificial altruist, yes, because it's sincere, because we act artificially, where I have to put energy. It doesn't come to me spontaneously. The more I do it, the more used to, and the more natural it becomes.
Sulla base di questo vengono le 6 perfezioni, le 6 qualità da perfezionare. Che sono?
The qualities to perfect are generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, and wisdom. Let's look at these briefly. It's something that's really beautiful about these 6 perfections is that they give us a direction in our lives. If I want to grow spiritually, if I want to go towards that state of peace, what should I do? Do I just wait to become a peaceful person one day, or are there things that I can do in my everyday life to help me go in that direction, where not only I become better, but I also become part of the solution? Just one more thing before getting into the 6 perfections. When we look around, I don't know for you, I don't know how you feel, but I'm not really happy with how the world is going. When I look at what's happening on a political level, social level, cultural level, the lifestyle that we have, okay?
Facciamo una vita molto malsana su tanti livelli.
I don't know if you agree or not. For me, when I observe this, I ask myself, I mean, what does the world need most? It needs people who don't talk that much, but who are love, who are awareness, who are respect and gratitude, coherence, harmony, peace. This is what we need most. So personally, what has brought serenity to myself, I can say, like, I look at the world and I recognize I can't resolve the problems on a national level, a world level. I can't even resolve the problems of the person I have next to me, but I can be part of the solution and not part of the problem. This is an ability that we all have. So if I'm against a war, means I'm against violence. But at this point, I mean, how do I live my own life? How do I interact with my family members, my friends at work, maybe with people that I don't know, with animals, with nature? Am I violent or not? If I'm not violent, good. If I am, then I'm really not part of the solution. I'm part of the problem. If I see if the cause of the problems, according to what I think, the fundamental cause of the problems in our society, on our planet, is not the lack of resources or overpopulation, etc. It's the obsession of self-gratification of human beings. That's where everything, that's where everything comes from. Just tell me one conflict, local, national, international, one conflict that didn't come from selfishness of man. I don't know a single one. So when I recognize that that the fundamental point that's the one I need to fight against, and on the other hand I need to cultivate love, I need to start with myself. I need to be part of the solution. And here there's these qualities to develop. The first one is generosity. For generosity we mean our ability to share, our ability to share with others our our material things, or share with others our affection, our resources in general, our knowledge, our experiences. And it's the joy in offering, the joy in giving. I think about the simple prayer of Saint Francis. It says it's by giving that we receive. Our Buddha said, "Chimgi long." Generosity brings abundance. When we give, we're not just creating an inner feeling of abundance. I mean, because to give, I need to have. And I'm sure that when I have a feeling of inner abundance, that creates an interdependence to really actually have more. I know people, for example, who have this a deep feeling of lacking, even when they have a lot, but they spend their life with this feeling of not having enough. They're afraid of sharing, afraid of using. It's almost like they don't have anything because then they don't enjoy it for themselves. They don't allow themselves to enjoy what they have, and they certainly don't share. When you have a feeling of abundance that allows offering and sharing, um, sh- sharing also that abundance. I don't know how it works, but my experience shows me that one has even more. So this first part is about not staying closed in oneself, but we allow ourselves to see others and take care of others. This doesn't mean necessarily to give materially. We can listen, we can smile, we can give a hand. We talk about the generosity of giving materially, giving love, generosity of giving protection, which means helping someone avoid suffering. If someone, so if someone who is starving, we give food, so we're giving materially, but we're also helping that person or keeping him from suffering even more. And then we also give spiritually. We help someone along their spiritual path. So when we have this possibility in our everyday life to offer, to share, not only does it generate a state of joy, but it generates also what's called in Buddhism an energy, a positive karmic force that becomes the basis to uphold our own spiritual growth. So that's why one of the first actions that we should perfect is the action of giving, because it's through generosity where we materialize love, where we materialize altruism. Because if I'm in front of someone who needs something, I'm happy to share. I'm materializing that feeling. And generosity is easy. We can do it it doesn't cost anything. We can do it in so many different ways. There's one exercise, for example, that's very simple. And I started to to practice. It was once I went to study in Tibet, and coming back and taking the plane from Shigatse to Beijing. I don't know why, but I got to the airport and I just had this feeling of just loving everyone. They were all Chinese people. I didn't know them. Um, also, not very, not very. They all seemed. I mean, they were all just different from me. I don't know, but I just had this feeling of wanting to hug them all, and I got into the air. I got to the hotel. I was exhausted, but I had this this great feeling of love. And there I invented a kind of exercise of going towards people that I don't know, at least once a day, um, possibly someone that we don't know, and then if you do know them, maybe change person. So we go to this person in this exercise. Look in the eyes if we can and say, "I love you. Your happiness is important to me as my own." We don't have to verbalize this, of course. Otherwise, imagine you're at the restaurant or when you're paying at the supermarket cashier. We're going to create more conflict than anything else. Also, because in our concept of love, if I'm at a restaurant and the hostess comes, or the waiter or the waitress comes, and we say, "I love you," ourselves to look into someone's eyes, we take stock of their existence, and we allow ourselves to get out for just a moment, to get out of our own selfishness, self-centeredness. And there was one moment when I was doing this exercise. Something really impressed me. I was in Brazil. It was by chance my birthday, and I was at a friend's house, and I was just pulling out of my car, and right next to me there was a construction site, and when there was a mason, a construction worker with his helmet, and he was looking at me, and I was looking at him. It's kind of normal, people look at me dressed like this. But I just kept on looking at him. And usually when someone looks at you, you really catch someone's eyes, and then people turn away. But instead here, we just kept looking at each other. And as I was looking at him, he was looking at me, I started doing this exercise. We were looking at each other from far, and I was thinking, I love you. I want your happiness. I want you to be happy. I want you to be well. And as I was saying it to myself, naturally, just a smile came out. And as I was smiling, and like a mirror, he started smiling, and we were there, I don't know, 20 seconds, 1 minute. I mean, time just stopped, and I can say that I had a love story with construction worker in Madalena, São Paulo, and in that moment, that it just really marked me for that day and beyond. It was really one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced, because when we're able really to look at another being and love them, that touches the most beautiful part of ourselves. I remember once a friend yeah, in America, he was a professional baseball player, and in 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 one of his like mystic crises, his moment of realizations, he he was playing. He was playing the like an important playoffs, or play an important game, and he was pitching. So in the baseball, you have um, y- so he was at the pitching. He was pitching, and he was about to pitch, but then he saw a little ladybug, and then he says that it was a moment where time just stopped. There was nothing other than this little ladybug, and he got down and he waited for that little ladybug to get onto his finger, and then he brought the ladybug all outside the baseball diamond, and everyone was thinking, what is he doing? And he says that that moment where he allowed himself to see another being and have this feeling of sincere love, that touched something inside that he had never felt before. And I had a similar experience with a stink bug. But what I mean to say is that when we do this exercise, we're giving a smile, we're giving a moment of love, a moment of affection, giving a positive feeling to someone else. It's a way to practice generosity. But it's something that we need to train in, repeat it. We share what we have materially, share our time, our resource in general, our joy. When we walk, when we see people, we can practice generosity with our appearance, with our facial expressions, the way we relate with others. I mean, there's many ways that we can practice generosity without talking more about this. I mean, the first quality to develop is generosity. The second is morality. Morality is not ethics. Those are two different things. Sometimes there's confusion about this. Ethics is where we define what is right and what is wrong, what should be cultivated and what should be abandoned. And we can spend days and months and years to talk about this. This should be done, that shouldn't be done. Oh, in this situation, should this or that be done? We can really spend a tremendous amount of time talking about this, and having good ethical code is important. But morality is our ability to respect that code, the ethical code. So morality is our ability to cultivate what is good for us, what is positive, and abandon what is harmful. Traditional texts and Tibetans divide morality into 3 types. Morality to cultivate what is good, abandon what is bad, and the morality of benefiting others. These are the 3 types of morality. If I say that I do something, my ability to maintain my word, that's morality. If I'm not able to maintain my word, then to respect my word, then I have a low morality. And if I recognize that something is bad for me and I'm not able to avoid it, that's also shows that I don't have a high morality. And this goes beyond the ethics. So the morality is these guidelines, they're actually like the guidelines on the strode, on the road. We can imagine them. We can imagine them like the white lines that are painted on the side of a road. Because imagine driving on a mountain road in the night time, without any, in the fog, or without any white lines. But it's happened. For example, I've been on a highway once coming back from Bologna. There was a terrible fog and rain. And I was driving, looking mostly at the white lines on the side of the road because I couldn't see in front of me. And it made me think about, reflect that there are days when it's really sunny and bright outside, and we have clarity about what we should be doing, what's good, what's bad. But then we have days of inner fog and inner storms where we don't know what we should do, and on those days, we need those white lines. These are the commitments that we take that we need to respect. What's good for us and what's harmful. So if someone takes the commitment to not lie, because one recognizes that lying is bad, and that every once in a while one wants to. If you never have the desire to lie, you wouldn't have to take the commitment not to lie. I don't do you have to take a commitment to not take a vacation to Mars? No. So a commitment is taken when there's the danger of doing that. So, or a danger, or if there. So the danger of doing, or benefit of not doing, or so I take a commitment to not criticize others. I take the commitment to not complain, to not kill, to not steal, to not lie, to not have a wrong sexual conduct. I take a commitment to avoid the things I recognize as being negative. I take also the commitment to do positive things, the things that are good for me, to help others, etc. This is morality, where we give ourselves a direction. We're not always able to follow it perfectly. Some things yes, some things less. But morality is fundamental. In the symbol that represents the teachings of Dharma, the Buddhist teachings is a wheel. It looks like a boat, a boat wheel, and it's made of 3 parts. There's a nucleus, and then we have like rays or spokes, and then we have this the wheel, the circle. So we have morality at the base as concentration, and then keeps it wisdom. So morality is what allows us to keep our path stable. Without morality, we're just reacting. We need the commitment to do things that are good for us, and avoid things that are bad for us. If I take a commitment for 1 week, for example, to jump up and down 5 times. If I maintain it, I don't know. If I don't maintain this commitment I take, then little by little it's going to demoralize me, and I'm going to lose faith in myself, trust in myself. And we need to be able to maintain a commitment, even if it's uncomfortable. So we have generosity and morality. The third is patience. Patience is our ability to not react with aggression in front of an object of anger. Patience means there's a situation, there's someone or an object, something, sometimes even with oneself, something that we recognize as a cause of suffering. And we just don't want that thing anymore. We want to eliminate that situation, to get far away from that person, whatever it is. And when we're in a situation, we're with when we see something as an object of anger and we're able to make space and not react with aggression on the three levels, mentally, verbally, or physically, that means we're practicing patience. When we lose patience, when we react with anger, etc., what happens is we lose control of ourselves, and we end up doing things that we wouldn't normally do. For example, in a friend, in a friendship, to build a a a deep relationship of affection and trust, maybe it takes years, but one moment of anger one can destroy everything. If we trust someone, if at a certain point someone treats us with aggression and violence, that can really break that trust that we had. And even after someone comes, I'm really sorry, I was angry, it's not you, you can say, okay, fine, but the wound inside is still there, and it takes a lot of time to heal. It's said that to cultivate what's positive, like a relationship of love and faith, that requires a lot of time, and to destroy it, sometimes it just takes an instant, and the hatred and the violence really has this characteristic, this ability to destroy the positive things that we have, our reputation, relationships with others, trust. And in addition, as Lama Ganchen used to say, when someone is angry, really strongly angry, one becomes like an oracle, like a medium. He receives this entity is no longer himself, and the one who is speaking is actually another being. When you're taken by anger, I mean, there's not the excuse. So anger took a hold of me. I wasn't myself. I mean, it's the oracle of anger. One loses control of oneself. But this doesn't mean that we're not responsible for what we do and say. Like in law, I mean, ignorance is not a valid reason. If I do something that's illegal without knowing that it was wrong, I'm still responsible. Maybe it's less severe, the punishment's less severe, but I'm still responsible. If similarly, if I do something stupid, maybe I'm not aware because I'm drunk, let's say. Maybe I can be, drunk from alcohol or another substance, or even drunk from anger. Does not take away one's responsibility. So anger is something that needs to be avoided at all costs. The aggressive reactions. And to do this, we need to cultivate patience daily. We're able little by little we can do this in situations that are easier to not react negatively, if not react physically, or even like making grimaces, and then not reacting verbally, and not reacting mentally, just small things, and then also little by little small situations, and then practicing patience in front of large, more difficult situations. To be patient in a situation, it's fundamental that I have the awareness, not so much conceptual, but also deeper within, that reality is really perfect the way it is. That if that person is acting in that way, which I don't agree with, but it's because causes and conditions have created, they are so, to bring that person to act in that same way, So it's useless to to be against that that behavior, but I need to see what I can do to pacify at that moment. But this opposition against anger is never helpful. There's also another type of anger, and here just briefly, it's this anger that doesn't come from wanting to hurt someone else, but it's an aggression that comes from a feeling of superiority. Let me just give you an example. Once I saw someone who reacted with aggression towards others because there were three people in a kitchen. They were eating like white bread, like Wonder Bread, soft bread. And this person is someone who really eats natural and eats well. And as you know, this so these people weren't family members, they weren't close friends, they weren't children, their children, but they were eating this white bread. And so this person really was against this and went to them and started yelling, really lost patience and was really quite aggressive. Well, you're really hurting yourselves. How could you eat something like this? And etc. You shouldn't do this. And talking with this person later, the three people were really quite shocked. And so so I talking with this person said, your intention was good. You don't want to hurt them. You want them to stop doing something that you think is harmful. But this way that you reacted, you think that's positive. And this reaction, was it done with awareness or what done without control? This is a form of aggression, of anger that comes from arrogance, of wanting to impose onto someone else the view of a world view. You should do like this. You should do like this. It shouldn't be like this, even with the best of intentions. But I'm not able to respect your diversity. I want to impose my way of being, and I do this with aggression, and this most of the time that actually has the opposite effect. Is that clear? Because sometimes one thinks, oh, I don't feel hatred, I don't want someone to be I don't want to hurt someone, but this form of aggression can also be possible. So practicing patience is to not react with violence, even if we are faced with an object of aversion. So, but what about watching the news, for example? I mean, really, let's try to be part of the solution and not oppose these objects of aversion. So generosity, morality, and patience. The fourth point that's fundamental is enthusiastic effort. Enthusiastic effort means putting energy in something that's positive but's not easy. In other words, it means allowing ourselves to get outside our comfort zone towards something that's positive. An example, or I really understood what effort was. I was studying in India at the monastery of Sera, and we need to memorize. We memorize word by word, by heart, and the exam is a minimum of 100 pages a year. It seems like a lot, but one of my classmates, he could memorize 1,500 pages a year. He had it's an amazing memory. And instead for me, it was really, really difficult. I never really liked it. When you memorize, you need to take the text and you need to read it out loud and repeat it until it doesn't get in, and then you have to recite it out loud. For example, to memorize in the Gelupa Tibetan Buddhist tradition, usually one dedicates like 2 to 4 hours memorizing every day. Because in the morning, you just maybe an hour in the morning, and then you pick it up in the afternoon, and then in the evening, again, otherwise you forget. And then in the evening, you need to put everything together that you've memorized, so that it goes in and stays in. And I never liked it. It is very, very, even though it's very, very useful. So my master, the one with whom I had to take the exam with, and he, it, that year he was also the discipline master. It was a discipline master who was going to give the text, and so he'd say, okay, for this book, for example, I memorized from page 1 to 60, and then you give the book to the one who has to test you, and then it just opens up, at any page randomly, and he reads maybe 3 words, and you need to continue until he says stop, and then he'll pick another page and reads 3 words, and then you have to continue. One friend tried to cheat. He normally they normally the teachers the teachers would open a page and they would start at the top. And so this friend of mine, he'd really tried to cheat a little bit because he memorized just the top of every page. So it seemed like he had memorized many pages, but he was just the top of the pages, and it went really badly that year because the teacher was taking from all pages of the book. So this teacher of mine said, you know that there's the memorization exam coming up. I said, yes. And he said, how many pages have you memorized? You know that it's supposed to be 100 pages a year. And then I said, well, in the West, we don't really memorize by heart. I read so much. I'm so good in debate, and I have a really good conduct. And I tried to find all the excuses, as if it were a kind of scale, to compensate. And then he said this to me: if you don't put energy in what is difficult for you, where are you going to put it? And I thought I was a good student, and I put effort, because I would stay for debate sessions. Like normally it was every day from 6 to 9, and very often I would stay until 11 o'clock or midnight. And one of the reasons. One of the reasons, a hidden reason, not the main reason, but a hidden reason, was I could also skip the memorization session. And also for the lessons, I would even go to other classes because I was just genuinely interested. So I really thought I was putting a lot of effort into my studies, but I liked it. And I understood, really, if you don't put effort into what's difficult for you, then where are you going to put the effort? So I really started memorizing, trying to learn by heart 4 or 5 hours a day, something I did only then, I have to say. And I got to the exam, and I had about 120 pages. So the ability to memorize was present, and it was important for me. What I was able to memorize. It was also what I studied. I mean, what I memorized, it was on the absolute, relative and absolute reality. Anyway, the point is, when we put effort into something, we go outside our comfort zone, outside of this trap of our habits. So we have generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, and the fifth is concentration, our ability to keep our mind still, our ability to say, mind, stay here, and it does. Instead, what happens often? Once it's here, sometimes it's here, and then we look over, then we come back and it's not there anymore. We need to look for it. Our lack of concentration brings us to not going deeply into something, to not being able to direct our minds, our emotions, and also our actions in a certain way. It's like having a very, very powerful tool and not knowing how to use it, like reins or a wheel, not knowing how to ride. It's extremely, extremely powerful. But our being, the 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 most powerful tool we have as beings is our mind, and according to how according to how I think, I transform. If I have this ability to direct my mind with awareness, I can do amazing things. But I need to be able to do that. Today, we have a bigger problem. Not only do we have a very distracted mind that has a hard time staying still on something, deepening, but we also have an addiction to sensory objects. Some time ago, I was listening to the radio in the car, and and at a certain point, there was someone who was talking and said, "You know, I took a challenge. I was able to stay 2 hours without looking at my phone. You know, it was hard, but it was really positive." And then he said, "Because today we're not able even to stay with ourselves." And said, one goes to the bathroom, for example, because he really, really needs to go to the bathroom, and then gets to the bathroom, they get down, they sit on the toilet, and they realize that they're without your telephone. What does he do? One gets up, holds it a little bit more, goes and get the phone, and goes back, because you don't know what's going to happen to have to stay by yourself for a couple moments. Unfortunately, they're right. This happens. Also, if we laugh about this, we laughing, but we're laughing a little bit out of nervousness. It seems like it's a joke, but talking to a doctor friend who's a researcher, I asked her. If it would be interesting to have scientific studies on the impact, prolonged use of cell phones on our mental health. And then she actually brought me some studies. Unfortunately, they're very few, but even though it seems obvious, the results seem obvious. But so one study on the direct effect of the cell phone on the health is hemorrhoids. Why? Because one is seated much longer than one needs to be. If you're sitting down, you're sitting in that position for longer than it needs to be. That increases this risk of hemorrhoids. So this has been scientifically proven that there's this correlation. But in my opinion, there are many other many other studies that can be done, like correlation between our health and the use of a cell phone. But if we're without these external stimuli, we go into abstinence. Our tendency when we get home is there's nothing to do. What do? I turn on the TV. I listen to an interview. I take something. we always have this constant need for stimulation. How often does one just sit? What are you doing? Nothing. Very, 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 very rarely. If we see someone like this, we'd say, "Are you depressed? Is something wrong?" Of course, there's something about staying in a catatonic state. That's not good. Another thing is just being with oneself, allowing ourselves to breathe, to observe nature around us, or simply just being is fundamental. But most of us, we live in an epoch. I mean, we live in a time where we have this addiction, and I'm not using that word as a metaphor. This the addiction to mostly to the cell phone. It's a chemical addiction that we have, and I talk about this because telling someone that they need to have more concentration, keep your mind still, have fewer distractions, stopping that inner dialogue. You need to do it, I could say. And as if I say this to you, but I leave you with all your social media and your cell phone, the sensation that I have is like telling someone, can you please dry the floor on the ground with this sponge? Um, and the person does that, but then I just I turn up the faucet, so it just keeps some wetting the floor. So trying to improve our concentration while we're constantly bombarded with external stimuli is just not going to work. So something that I invite you to do is to try in your everyday life to diminish your external stimuli so you can come into contact with yourselves. For example, creativity. Creativity comes from inside, not from outside. I live something, I perceive something, I put things together, and then I create. Two examples come to mind. Steve Jobs, for example, created Pixar company, and so he created this company to make animated films. And in an interview, they asked him, what are you producing? He said, creativity. I mean, these are results of creativity, and he was aware that creativity didn't come. I mean, these creations, these ideas didn't come by staying closed in a cubicle, seeing always the same people. So when he created the headquarters of the Pixar, he created very large hallways and all the bathrooms in the same place, so that whoever needed to go to the bathroom needed to go past through the same hallway. So people were constantly meeting different people. He was saying that it's meeting people and those unexpected encounters that provoke ideas and creativity. Another example that we have here in Albagnano, one of the first years of the summer camp with the children, at a certain point, I think at the time they were between 9 and 13 years old. There were about 30 of them, and they went walking in the woods. At a certain point, the kids were told, now, they said, what are we going to do now? Nothing. There's nothing to do but silence. They needed to stay silently in the woods. What are we going to do here? We're going to get bored. Okay. And they were just there looking around. I mean, how much time they didn't know. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, half an hour, 40 minutes. At a certain point, something really happens. First, they get really bored. It's this like a state of anxiety related to that boredom. At a certain point, they transcend that boredom, and from that state, they calm down, and then the creativity starts coming up, and they started inventing games and all sorts of things, and they just started having fun. We live in a time where we're afraid of being bored. Oh, I'm going to get bored. So, where's the problem? It seems like someone's torturing you. Instead, it's important to feel bored so that we can transcend this boredom and give space to that, to creativity. This is also the space of observation. So I invite you, allow yourselves to get bored. Let's allow ourselves to go beyond boredom and reconnect with this creative aspects of ourselves. But to do this, we need to diminish the external stimuli, the images that we receive, the things that we hear, the information that is just is unnecessary information that we receive constantly. This is absolutely fundamental so that we can concentrate better. And people ask me, well, how can I develop a good concentration? And I tell you, by concentrating. The more I train my mind in staying still, the more the mind will stay still in the present moment. And last but not least, last but not the least important, and also something that really requires a deeper explanation, and we're going to just see it very quickly here. The sixth perfection is wisdom. Let's go straight to the point. Are we mortal or immortal beings, this body? At some point, do we need to die and leave this body? Yes. Does anybody have a doubt about that? Or a certainty about that? What happens even if we know that sooner or later this life will end? In our way of interacting and in the choices we make, how often are we aware of this mortality? Is it the majority of time or the minority of time? I mean, minority. When we take stock of our morality, really, our reality changes. So living our lives that is mortal, as if we were immortal, is like living something so obvious like our own mortality, but ignoring it as if it didn't exist is a kind of ignorance. But living life with the awareness of this mortality is a form of wisdom. Let me give you another example. When we look at these flowers, if we look at the flowers and we close our eyes, we count to 3, we open our eyes, we look at the flowers. Are these the same flowers as before? Or have they changed without philosophizing? They're the same. Nobody's changed them. Now, if we philosophize a little bit, analyze a little bit, these flowers, at a certain point, they just change? Or is it a constant process of transformation? It's a constant process, but even if the flower is in constant transformation, it appears to us as if it were static, permanent, just the same. So the fact that the flower is impermanent, but that we perceive it as if it were permanent, is a form of ignorance. Wisdom in this case would be to interact with the flower, with the with the awareness that it's impermanent. So you relate with something impermanent as being impermanent. Another example, we live in a subjective reality. In other words, none of us is able to perceive or experience anything independently of ourselves. Okay? I heard this neuroscience the other day, and she gave an example that really touched me. She had a cup, a metal cup in her hand, and she said, for example, the solidity of this cup. We could say, this singing bowl is. We could say it's solid, right? And so it's being solid. Is that objective or subjective? It's subjective. Why? Because the solidity depends on the relation to something else. If my hand weren't made of flesh and bones, or if it were if it were made of iron and had a certain strength, would it be solid for me? No. So even if it's solid, not solid, it's not something objective, but it exists in relation, in dependence on something else, and nothing exists autonomously. Nothing exists intrinsically. Simplifying a little bit more, we're not able to perceive anything independently of ourselves. But when we see this reality and this world around us, do they appear to us as being subjective, or do they appear as being objective? I see you. I see you. Am I seeing my version of you, or am I seeing you? And so the reality appears to me as being objectively that, when actually it's not. So the fact that I see a subjective reality as being objective is a form of ignorance. Being able to see the subjective reality as being subjective would be a form of wisdom. So wisdom is coherence, and this is the quality to develop. It's the key to resolve all problems, but to be able to develop wisdom, first we need to develop generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, and concentration to get to wisdom. And wisdom without love is useless. So if we asked ourselves, what is the path to follow according to what Buddha transmitted? If I considered myself a Buddhist, what should I be doing? You should cultivate love towards yourself, love towards others, and train in generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, and wisdom. And if we're able to see these characteristics and see that everyday life is an enormous gymnasium. I mean, advice I've always given, kind of as a joke, but it's really quite practical. I mean, we need to establish moments to practice. So otherwise years go by, and we go home and we do this, we do that. But instead, why don't we divide up the week? Monday, generosity. Tuesday, morality. Wednesday, there's patience. So with awareness, we put attention. We try with awareness to develop Generosity on Monday, morality on Tuesday, Wednesday with patience, Thursday enthusiastic effort, um, and one day you relax, you can mix up the days and change the order. But what's important, well, maybe our free day is really about love, but we should create space in our lives so that we can train. Because if we don't create that space, this training's not going to happen. The wanting, the willing is not enough. What I'm gonna say this, and I'm saying it also openly as a way to try to get out of this. I am in a little bit of a spot here because I took the commitment, not just with myself but with others, to go, to walk around, to go visit and do the circumambulation of Mount Kailash. And physically, I'm just not ready. It's like 54 kilometers, over 5,000 kilometers. I need to train, and I even bought the watch, like a sport watch, and to see my. But because I have this sport watch and I want to do it, doesn't make it happen. I need to start walking, but to do it, what do I have to do it? Which I haven't started doing yet, but I need to do, and I will do. I need to take that magic thing, which is called agenda, and create space. And right here, I need to walk. Here, I need to do that. Otherwise, this life goes on. So if we put in our calendar generosity, morality, patience, and the classic is, is the day that we want to practice patience. We'll see that it's the day where everything goes wrong. But it's probably just because we have more clarity. We're more aware of having to practice this feeling, this quality. So the point is every day to live our lives, really putting effort into becoming a better person. And something that gives me a lot of relief is that the changes I make in me, they don't end there, but my choices, my habits, my inner and outer habits, everything that I am and my way of living my life influences in those around me, in the culture in general. And the way that I live my life will influence the future generations. And on an evolutionary level, if I'm able to have children, children to genetically pass these if we're not able to actually have children and genetically pass on these personality traits, and we as people, the way that we live our lives is a way to hand down and shape the future generations. So we start by training ourselves. I'd like to just make one request. If there's something that's been said today that you think can be of benefit to you, please try to put it into practice. That's all for today. Today at 3 o'clock, we will have a short event, an encounter dedicated to the centers based on donations, because the activities are free, and there's a campaign. There's a campaign to support the center, the Generosity Garden. So at 3, we're going to celebrate those who over the years or who are participating in this donation campaign. and it will be, I will start on time because I will have to translate for my master, Kyabje Chögyam Rinpoche. And so I translate for him online. So I will have to do that later in the afternoon. So I'll start really on, I try to start on time at 3. And then there are other activities, like a musical event too.
Drove Munsel Tato Neguruchi, Kewa Kunto Yanda Lamada, Drame Chukipela Longchuchi, Sada Lamge Yunte Rapzone, Dorje Change Kopa Nyurtoba Sho, Chancho Simcho Rimboche, Make Panam Keguruchi, Kepa Nyambra Mebayang, Kongne Konto Pelwara Sho. Possa.
May the precious mind of love and altruism that has not yet been born grow. May that one who has already arisen grow even more. At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Here, when we say to obtain realizations, it's through the help of the one who guides us, through the help of those who support me. May I develop these 6 privations. Then it really becomes a hard work miracle, as Lama Ganshin would say. So it's not just that obtain realizations that they fall from the sky. Okay, thank you. Have a good lunch. And just something very practical. I'm very happy to say hello to those. But today, just because of time, I just don't have time for many questions or to talk at length. But for a quick hello, yes.